Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and I'm delighted once again to be joined by the wonderful, irreplaceable Rick Pursell, who has been on holiday for, we haven't actually spoken for a couple of weeks, have we? Is it 2 weeks or just 1 week? I lose track of time. How are you? How are you, Rick?
I'm doing fine.
Is it
just,
1 week or
just
2?
lost you for a moment. We were away for just 3 nights. I've sort of been voluntarily homebound for about 3 months, following my passion, doing lots of writing. So I haven't left the property in about 3 months, and it's kids' holidays. So we decided to go from the mountains to the beach. So we had 3 lovely days, lounging around the pool, on the beach, going for a walk, found a beautiful vineyard and walked through all the vines, the red and white grapes, and of course was forcibly made to partake in a tipple or two over lunch, which was very nice.
Of course, and why not? Why
As
not?
one does. As one does. And how about you? How is life in Portugal and settling into your new place?
Well, we're still settling, and it feels very good. We're starting to unwind a little bit. We're gonna order some furniture soon, so that's gonna be good. We're a little bit without furniture at the moment, but like garden furniture as chairs inside the house, that kind of thing. But we'll be ordering something just this week, so it's gonna just keep feeling more and more like home. We've been to the beach most days. And we've got a choice of 2 beaches that we can walk to. There's another 2 great beaches, a short drive away. And so we've spent a lot of time outdoors with the kids and the dogs. It's been really good. Yeah, we're all good. Yeah. And it's still really nice weather. I mean, a lot of the Portuguese are starting to think it's like winter because the temperature's dropped, but it's still in the 20s. And so it feels great for us Brits.
Yes, yeah. Wonderful.
So we're talking about on shaky ground, and I just wondered if you want to dive right into that. I'm just going to put on a little message that people can let us know if they want to talk to us, and I can see that we have had people listening in. So if anyone wants to join us and say hello, let us know where you're from. That would be great. So where do you want to start, Rick?
At the beginning.
Okay. What
actually there was this enormous bang, and then from that point on it all went downhill. No, it hasn't.
The funny thing is that is what we're taught, but do you believe that is our model of the world? Just
the Big Bang theory?
Yeah.
Well, we have to look behind at who or what created the Big Bang, because it just didn't happen. So I have, maybe we'll talk about this a bit later on if we have time, but I have a theory on that. But coming back to shaky ground, we had a very moderate earthquake here, 4.8 magnitude, which is caused a little bit of damage in the immediate area. In developing countries, houses are not built as we would in the Western architecture and safety elements. And a lot of them are made out of concrete. Well, they're not concrete, it's sand and cement pressed with a machine. So there isn't a lot. It's not like concrete, which is a solid mass. They're quite aerated in lots of ways with the tiny gaps in between. And if you shake them up and you give them a decent vibration, they'll virtually almost liquefy and go back to sand again and crumble very quickly. So in the immediate area, which was probably about 25 kilometers away from here, there were several houses that were damaged, but not serious damage. It was 10 kilometers underground, and we were shaken, not stirred, from our slumber at 4:18 in the morning,
Wow.
with all the windows shaking and rattling. It made a lot of noise, but we had no damage whatsoever.
Mm.
Just had an early start for the day,
Wow.
and it made me think about um, something that is labeled stable datums. And a
Okay.
stable datum is something that's considered to be fixed or firm and is a reference point.
What,
For
like our
instance, sorry,
like the reality that we believe that we have around us.
yeah, yes, don't go there. It depends on whose reality it is and from
Yeah.
what point of view they're seeing. But yes,
So stable data.
um, the stable datums. So the one for years and years in the UK was Greenwich Mean Time. It
Mm.
was measured at a place in Greenwich near London,
Yep.
and from that, the global time was taken from that point.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was zero, and if you were in Singapore, it would be 12 hours ahead,
Mhm.
and so on. If you were in California, it would be more, and if
Yeah.
you were closer to it, it would be less.
Yeah.
And so that became a stable datum for everywhere. What's the
Mm.
time? Greenwich Mean Time was a
Mm.
stable datum. When we could rely on that as being, we could take the time and we could determine where we are on the planet and base it on that stable datum.
Well,
And
that's what we relied on this morning, wasn't it? Or this afternoon for you.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's how we're
It's
meeting up today.
it's in Europe it tends to be UTC now, which is Universal Central Time,
Yeah.
which can change, and it doesn't. I don't think the daylight saving is impacted because that can change from one location to another. But
Right.
the and another one is like surveyors have these instruments when they're out surveying the road on a
Mm.
tripod. It's called either a dumpy level or a theodolite, and somebody's at the other end with a stick with all of its markings on it, and
Yeah.
they'll take a reading through this device. And they can then take that spot. They usually put a block or a nail or a piece of wood in the ground, as you do on your property, and that becomes a stable datum from which all other measurements are taken.
Yeah.
And the other main one, just to make very clear, sea level is used as a measuring device. How many meters or how many feet above sea level? As long as we're not talking about the Red Sea, what is it? The Red Sea in the Middle East, and around Machu Picchu, there's the highest sea in the world. We're talking about the normal oceans. So
Right.
they become stable datums, and we can take all of our measurements of height from that, altitudes, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that should clear up what stable datum is.
Uh-huh.
Now, where shaky ground comes is that we have learned to crawl, walk, roll, lay, jump, gallop on what has been the most stable datum probably for us in our lifetime, unless you
Mhm.
live in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So that's when that we know the Earth is going to be stable and solid,
Mm.
um, sandy beaches,
Mhm.
eventually compact down there. So when as we are on two tectonic plates,
Mm.
um, then things start to be different.
Yeah.
And the big one that we did experience years ago, it was a wave. It was a palpable wave. It wasn't shaking. It
Mhm.
wasn't like that or up and down. It was just a wave, and it created a standing wave in our swimming pool. And
Wow.
nobody got any sleep the rest of the night because we were just. It was such an extraordinary experience to have that stable datum, datum taken from underneath us.
Mm.
And of course, you're always on the alert for aftershocks with
Yes.
earthquakes as well. So we got some of those. So while this was a minor one, it thought, that's shaken our stable datum for a few seconds.
Yeah.
and hence the subject matter of today.
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
At some level, it's like something happens in your life that cannot be unseen. Like once we become aware of something, we can't become unaware of it, unless we're sort of like Jedi Zen meditation masters. So it's a bit like, once you see something, you can't unsee it, or once you feel something, technically you can't unfeel it. Once you've experienced something, how do you go back to becoming stable again? Is this what we're talking about today?
Yes,
Like,
it
how do we maintain solid footing in a world that is shifting?
Yeah, that's exactly the question to ask. So, just to give a bit more back picture, our world is going through extraordinary turmoil. Right?
Isn't it?
People had jobs and they've lost them. People
Yeah.
had human rights and they've lost them. They've had
Oh.
stability in their home, in their
Mm.
work, in their village, in their town, in their city. So all of those things that we could rely on as income, driving down to the shop and buying stuff off the shelves, and all of those things, they've been altered to some degree, right?
Yeah.
We're not looking at the reason behind it, but
So
our
might be a good
lives have.
start though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you'll be in trouble. You'll be in trouble,
I am.
girl.
My dad always said that about me.
So, what was a stable, simple activity, and I have a very dear friend in Moscow, and she had to go online and ask for permission to leave her apartment to go to the supermarket to buy food.
What?
Yes, she
Outrageous.
couldn't just put on a coat and walk down the road.
Is that because of the what has been
The
named
the thing
pandemic?
involved. Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is all of the stable, foundational activities are being shaken. We've
Yeah.
got kids at home doing homeschooling. Some parents have no experience in homeschooling,
Yeah.
right? And maybe don't have the character to do it or the patience.
Yeah.
So
I
all
often ask myself if we're the right people. Sorry. I was thinking, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so we're being challenged
Yeah.
in many, many areas. That which was stable and foundational in our life is on shaky ground,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we don't know when it's going to finish. Just as you don't know at the time how long an earthquake is going to finish. They're usually very rapid. They're usually only a few seconds or a minute at the most. And most times we can say, well, it's raining now, but it'll stop. Unless you're in England, which I used to be.
Yeah, you never know when
So
the rain will stop, do you?
exactly, yeah. And so how do we deal with this? All that which was stable was our foundation that we could rely on, people that we could rely on, right? Even within the family, the stability of the family is being severely challenged, right? Relationships. If there was a little bit of shakiness about a relationship, it's being shook up now. It's
Yeah.
being shook up.
Well,
And
there's a couple of change factors that I see going on as well, and that is like right now we're going through rapid change, which is why we're seeing all these things happening. So, like maybe not like 3-second relationship changes, but in the space of a week, like the week of the announcement of the pandemic, and in the space of like this last 18 months, relationships have gone through a massive change in the shape of families. But there's another subtle change that has taken much longer to achieve, possibly generations. And then when those changes happen, we're not noticing them, are we? It takes a much broader time length. And I might be skewing the conversation away from where you're hoping to discuss. I think having these rapid changes can be a blessing because we can see them, can't we? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely valid what you're saying. Is because if the effect, perhaps the traumatic effect of an instantaneous event that's happened, causes us pain and trauma
Yeah.
with very little lead up, is much harder to deal with than if we can prepare ourselves. And
Yeah.
think about the difference between a motor car accident where somebody passes away and somebody passes away from old age
Yeah.
or a long debilitating illness. We can
Yeah.
prepare ourselves. But
Yeah.
when something goes wham like that, all of that stability, grand's here, or my brother who's just a couple of years older than me died of a heart attack, all suddenly with no prior medical history. It's a lot harder to deal with that.
Yeah.
So
I
what we're seeing now is exactly as you say, unprecedented change. So much change that has gone on, or is going on, and what it's tied to is the old paradigm. All that which no longer serves us.
Yeah.
Right? Our political structure, our educational structure, our financial structure, so much of our old structure doesn't work for everyone. It may work for some, right? The very wealthy, and I have nothing against them, can ride out these storms, but for most people, it's unprecedented changes. And this has come within, what are we now, 18 months? Right?
Yeah, longer now.
It happened. Remember that day one of COVID was,
it's 18 months,
we
isn't
had
it?
to shut down for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? We're now running close to 2 years. So that happened very quickly. Within 6 weeks, our planet was pretty well shut down.
Yeah. And
or it changes.
Our view of health has changed quite considerably. Whereas, like, for instance, the idea of that we can be sick without having any symptoms, like that's never been part of our mindset belief before.
Yes.
People only do tests if there's something wrong. And now all of a sudden we're living in a worldwide culture of people who are testing themselves sometimes 2-3 times a week. Children are being tested 2-3 times a week to see if they're ill. So we're not even judging our own senses anymore.
Yes. Yes.
That's a huge change. Like, you could say, like, 2 years ago, we trusted our innate immune system much more than we do now. That's a huge step to take that belief away from somebody, a belief in their magnificence or a belief in their birthright of an immune system.
Yes.
What
Yes.
crazy times.
They are, and many of them are being guided by people who have no medical history or education whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we're going to get ourselves into sticky water here, go down this track. But it's true. It is true. It would be the equivalent of you are arrested for, you haven't committed any crime.
Yeah.
You haven't done any violence.
Yes.
You are walking along the street, right? Following all the protocols.
Yeah.
And you are arrested, and the arresting officer said, you are guilty.
Yeah.
You are guilty.
Yeah.
Right? Not guilty and not innocent until you're proven guilty, but you are guilty now.
Yeah.
And so if
that is
here we
happening.
are in the peak of our health, kids and children in the peak of our health are assumed to be a threat to society, right? That they are ill and you must keep testing them.
Yeah.
So all it takes.
And anyone who questions that is somehow dangerous.
Yes. The enemy. It's the divide and conquer again. So,
wow.
So and that's been very disruptive, and so much so that the divide and conquer between the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, the Democrats, Republicans, gay and straight, Christian, Muslim,
Man and
it's all
female.
being played out there. All of that.
There's a very big
all of
narrative
the joy.
going on with gender at the moment as well, isn't there?
Yes, 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 indeed. So all of that which was stable for us is being shaken up. We're dismantling all of the old stuff that doesn't serve all of humanity and
Yeah.
all species and the earth. And we're sifting through it, saying, don't throw that away. That's permaculture works, gentle birthing works, sharing economy works. Don't throw that out. But
Yeah.
that which doesn't serve everybody needs to be taken away, and we'll replace it with something that is much more life enhancing and all encompassing and unifying the human family instead of fragmenting and polarizing it. So
Yeah.
we have to, in the bigger picture behind it, we have to see that this is what's unfolding.
Yeah.
And the remedy for us can be, it depends on one's perspective and what works for you. But I'm reminded of the Zen Buddhist monks in Japan with the rake stones and the pebbles and sand. And in the middle of the walled garden is one big rock.
Mm-hmm.
And the Buddhist monks will sit and contemplate that one rock for hours and hours. So let's take that amongst all the chaos that's going on in our life. Right? As an individual, what's happening in a relationship with the kids, with work, all of that. Try and find one stable datum that you can put your attention on, because otherwise your head is it's going like this, all this stuff in and out. What if? The
Yeah.
mind is having a field day out of it. So we want to funnel that down. What is stable in my life now? Well, I found that gratitude and appreciation for what we do have is one of the most stabilizing factors that we can have in our life.
Yeah.
Despite what's going on, if you're in the middle of some ill health, well, I had 26 good years where my body was healthy. It's not at the moment, but I'm doing my best to get it healed and get some help on it. And just finding something that you can be grateful. And that is uplifting for the vibrational frequency of our energy that we carry around. So I would strongly advise people to use that one element is life changing, appreciation and gratitude. And I know that you use this, Louisa. So
Yeah, I still use
give us some examples.
Well, I recently restarted the exercise that you set me 11 years ago, which was the one where you receive money and you write how you spend it. And the next day it doubles, and then you write how you spend it. And it's a gift from the universe, and each day, without fail, that money shows up. And very quickly, it just reboots me. And it reboots my life. And then around about 5 or 6 days in, I chicken out, and, and then like 2 or 3 days happen before I do the next one, because it gets almost so incredible that so much luck and direction and feeling of hope can come to me. I start to doubt it, and then I have to get myself back in. But I do it now quite frequently, just because it changes my viewpoint very, very quickly. I get very grateful for what I have, and
Yes.
and the more I do this, the more I realize I have everything that I need. That's the funny thing, is you're going through this sort of what looks like a very rational exercise of deciding how you're going to spend your abundance and your good luck, and actually what happens is you get very grateful for what you've got. You realize that you've got so much, and the funny thing is every time I do this, without exception, new opportunities come in. It opens my mind to a new way of being in myself. More work comes in. The moment I live with that feeling that anything is possible, because that's what that exercise gives you. It gives you that moment of knowing that anything is possible. Like, if I could live without worrying about money, what would I do? All of a sudden, you start to become your magnificent self. When you remove all the stressors in your life, you start behaving as the most magnificent human you can be. So that's one thing that I do, and I kind of break it out like it's emergency first aid. It's almost behind glass, and I get my hammer out. Quick, I need that exercise. there it is. I get myself a book and a new pen, and I start writing every night. But yeah, the other one is just how can I choose gratitude right now? And I think, when you're talking about stable datums, like the only thing we can be really certain of, I know even then we can't be certain of it because we could pass away, couldn't we? We never know when our time is up. But until our time is up, the only thing we can be certain of is that we're going to have one breath after the other, after the other, after the other, or you could say heartbeats until you stop breathing and until you don't have heartbeats anymore. And I think that's always a really good place to start because that is the only thing that we can be certain of. And there's another thing that we cannot see our own faces. That's something I learned recently. Like you can't, I don't know, lick your elbow or something like that. I don't know, some crazy things. But we see our faces all day long, don't we, on a camera or on a phone or in a mirror. And it never occurred to me that we never, ever get to see our face in its entirety in our whole lives. And that was quite a shocking thing for me because we think we know who we are. And sometimes when I look at somebody's face, I feel so much peace and gratitude for that person in my life. And I wonder what the effect would be if you could actually see your face in real life. Like, would you love yourself more in the way that you do for special people in your world? But there's just a few thoughts. But I think just stilling the mind and focusing on the breath is a good way. And then from your breath, looking, what do I have around me? This table, this chair. I'm really grateful for this chair I'm sitting in. I love the way it swings from side to side. It's really nice. I love the fact that I'm sat on a rug right now. My feet are kind of comfy, and I could literally just go around me in the local environment. This pencil I'm very grateful for because I'm writing notes about all the things that we're talking about. So if you start small, all of a sudden it starts to lift you up very quickly.
Yes, beautiful. Another tool which I found is very, very powerful.
What's that?
The ego mind wants us in the future,
Oh,
worrying about the future, what ifs, what if I don't run out of money, what if? Or it wants us in the past, right? I haven't forgiven my long lost uncle or that guy that rammed into my great car. We're in the past and the mind is regurgitating that. When we come mindfully into present time, that's all disappeared. The ego cannot exist in present time.
Rick, this funny sound. What's that sound?
Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
Those are cicadas.
Seriously?
Can you hear them?
Yeah.
Well, they're relatively quiet here today. The other day I was on a call. I could barely hear myself speaking.
They just started up all of a sudden.
They will, and they'll stop.
Oh,
and
wow.
The cicada, part of the noise is from rubbing their legs together.
Yeah.
There's two sounds. Lead singer, and then there's a next lifetime I want to come back as a lead singer in the cicadas group.
I can see you doing that. Yeah. I can definitely do that. With some 70s flares.
So yes, I'm grateful for the cicadas, and I'm grateful that you can get to hear them in Portugal.
Yeah, awesome.
So coming back to mindfulness.
Yeah.
What, where human beings spend an inordinate amount of time trying to control things that are completely out of their control. So for me, I wake up in the morning and I consciously ask myself, what am I going to put in today?
Wow,
and I have two choices. Is it fear, which I know is driven by the ego, and it contains separateness and superiority and judgment and victimhood and I'm not good enough and fear, or love.
Mm.
So it's the white wolf, black wolf again.
Yeah.
And I consciously choose, I want to put love into every moment.
Mm.
Now, am I 100% successful at that? Absolutely not. Right?
Mm.
But a large portion of my life is driven by that. What do I
Yeah.
have control of? What I'm going to do in this next moment. Right? What am I going to think? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? I have pretty good control over that. I don't
Yeah.
have any idea what's going to happen at 5 o'clock tonight, but I've got a pretty good idea that what we collectively, as we've done weekly, is we
Mm.
can have a loving conversation, sharing our insights, and being authentic and genuine about what we have to say, and not worry about what anybody thinks.
Yeah. I mean, that is quite beautiful, isn't it? Not worrying so much. And actually,
Wonderful.
that is one of my certainties. I'm never certain that we can connect, because that doesn't always work. The internet might go down, or our sound, or but I'm always certain that when you and I do connect, the feeling and the quality of sharing between us will always be super high, and
Yes,
that's something to be very grateful for as well.
yes. So, what if we were to make that our stable datum? Instead of fear,
Yeah.
which has
Mm.
been driving humanity for a long time,
Mm.
which has fragmented humanity,
Yeah.
and what's happening at the moment is an endemic, a
Mm.
virus of fear
Yeah.
that is encompassing this planet. What if we consciously chose the one thing that I can muster up is
Yeah.
love, and starting with ourselves?
Yeah.
What what do I have control of? I can control how I feel and what I think. If I wake up grumpy, can I change to I can ask myself, do you want to be like this for the rest of the day, or worse, the rest of your life? No. Okay. Then what do you want to be? Well, I want to be happy. I want to be useful. I want
Yeah.
to be of value to myself and my family.
Yeah.
So we have this choice of how we want to be. So one of the best stable datums I've had is falling back into love. Love for myself, not in an egotistical way, but
Yeah.
to, to work at being the best version of me that I can become, so
Yeah.
that I can function better in my family, my world, and everything that I do. And
Yeah.
we all have this capacity, everyone. I believe that there is goodness in everyone. It's just where it's not present, it's just been masked by pain and trauma. There is so much pain and trauma on this planet.
Yeah.
And but beyond that is this, well, we've said it before. We've raised kids and looked into their eyes at 3 months old. I don't see any evil.
No, definitely not.
None at
Definitely.
all. Just
Um,
pure, unconditional love.
yeah. Absolutely. There must have been times when your world has been like your because we started to talk about the stable datum that we have on our worldview. There must have been times when suddenly your worldview changed, because I know the worldview, or I know about some of the worldview that you hold, and that seems to run quite contra to what the leading dominant narrative is about what's real and what's not. Um, what did you do at time, or how did you cope with these like awakening moments where all of a sudden a new reality was birthed in you?
Hmm.
Because I think that is
Well,
going on for people right now. They might be realizing that like the medical systems that they put their faith in, or the news delivery systems that they've always believed to be true. I think there are some things that are starting to become apparent right now. What do we do in those moments?
um, crisis is the driver of change. If you look at our own lives, we've been in crisis. Something has changed. The relationship has folded, and we are now on our own, or we've moved, as you and I have moved to various countries.
Yeah.
Um, we've lost a job, we've
Yep.
lost a friend, a family member, a pet. All of these are massive, could be deemed big changes in our life, big crisis.
Yeah.
And how we've dealt that, for me, depending on what it is, but um, I have experienced a lot of pain in my life, and I permit myself and surrender into that pain rather than resisting it and say, no, I don't want this, I don't want this. I allow the grief to come up. I allow the anger to come up and out, but not projected onto somebody. So um, whatever's arising is arising, and I just allow that to happen with no resistance, no denying it, no trying to hold it back, no running away from it, turning and facing it. Right? And that speeds up the whole healing process, because basically what we're looking at now, I'm now taking responsibility for this. And that's the second part. We may or may not be aware of it, but we've attracted these circumstances, these crises, in order to grow more conscious, to grow more heart-centered. So each one of those has been an opening of the door of possibility and potential to be something different and be somebody, a better version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then immediately following that is, well, my life has been shaken up. What is stable? And then maybe make a list of it. Well, I still have my car. I've got a roof over my head. I've got some money for food, right? And I've got clothing. So I'm now better than about 2 billion people on the planet who are struggling, struggling, right? And then that's how the gratitude process gets kicked in. I look at what I have got, and that becomes my stable datum. Well, what can I do from here? From this springboard of what I have, this is all that other stability's gone, but this is still here, right? And I'm going through the healing process, or I've healed. Now, where can I springboard from that? And as we know, it's not how many times you fall over, it's how many times you get up again. Dust yourself off and go on.
I think that's actually quite a good comment. We've actually got Jen White has shared with us, definitely going on for me right now. Jen, I would invite you to tell us a little bit more, if that's okay with you. I'm wondering if that's that your view of the world has shifted recently, and if so, I'd love to hear how it's shifted and what you're learning from it. Or if you have a question, maybe Rick and I could share a little bit about how we've dealt with the changes. I remember when I came to Bali, which is where I met Rick, coming up 12 years ago now. And when I moved to Bali, and it sort of it kind of coincided with meeting Rick. Some of the things I've been curious about, I suddenly had the opportunity to learn from a different perspective, like things like international disasters, and the root cause of them. And very quickly realized that what I've been told by my media, my government, etc., actually just didn't hold water at all. And I remember having a few weeks of kind of looking over my shoulder thinking, wow, what I've just learned is really radical. Someone's going to try and kill me. Like thinking, because it's very scary when you first hear something that goes contra to what you believe. I remember coming back from Bali and sharing a lot of information with my friends, and my friendships with those people haven't really been the same since. Because I think when you first learn things, your readiness to share them is actually very off-putting, isn't it? To people who aren't in the same space. It's a funny one.
Yes. So Jen, without knowing any details, and I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, is that you are in the process of change, or you're in the process of crisis. What I would suggest, if I may be so bold, is don't resist anything.
That's lovely.
Don't push it away. It's happening for a reason, and from this, wherever you are, right, is going to take you, if you are willing, to a much better place. So that's a wild generality, and because I don't know your personal situation.
We've got a
But
little bit more information now.
out of crisis comes change.
Mm.
Out of confusion comes clarity and certainty. So when these happen, I welcome them in. They're not pleasant, some of them,
Yeah.
and I can get aggravated when the internet keeps going down. But then you say, okay, I'd be grateful for the fact that most of the time it's not down. So just accepting what is, that's probably the best way to this is the reality. I'm not trying to change anything in the moment. I'm just accepting and recognizing this is the reality. What can I do? What can I do differently? What is stable in my life that I can build upon? So if that helps.
Well, Jenna shared a
so,
little
yeah.
bit more information, actually. So she said, yes, recently did the same. Realised narrative is not what we thought. And some friends, she's actually corrected this, friends don't realise, and has then put a thank you on the end. I think that's actually for your recent comment, actually, Rick. Yeah, that is just going back to the original comment. Realise the narrative is not what we thought. And some friends don't realise. Now, I could make a whole bunch of assumptions here that you might be feeling suddenly isolated from the people who have been your stable datum, your friends who you've been able to share with and trust. All of a sudden, that sort of sense of closeness is stressed when, some people move on to, I guess, like in a relationship, if your husband or your wife or whatever suddenly decides that their life it has new rules, then you either kind of go with it or you find yourself going off in different directions. I really like what Rick said, which is to lean into it. That is what you said, wasn't it? To
Yes.
radically accept it. And to kind of breathe into it, because it is a marker of change. It's a moment of evolution for you, and you could be robbing yourself of it actually by trying to hold on to what you know. Also causing yourself more pain. It's very difficult to hold on to a view when you know it's incorrect. And something else I would really do is kind of congratulate yourself at some level. Cut yourself a break. You've listened to your instincts at some level. Whatever voice was whispering in your head or in your heart that was saying something doesn't feel quite right, you've had the courage to go against all of your programming to find out, and that takes a lot of spirit and courage. And I think that's one of the first steps, isn't it?
Yes.
to allow yourself that courage.
Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. And Jen, something else. Know that you're not alone. We are all going through this. There's 7.8 billion people, 1,000 billion people on the planet. And you can bet your life that most of us are going through this catalytic change, this catharsis of change. And, I'm still getting over the fact there is no Santa Claus or Tooth Fairy. I'm still traumatized by it. I believed all that stuff for years. I even put food out under the Christmas tree. What a narrative. I need to have that rug pulled out from under them.
Do you know what?
I'm joking, but there's two narratives that most children, certainly in the Western world, are spun.
Yeah.
And we hang on to them.
Do you know what? And I've been criticized like crazy for this. And now I just don't tell people. But since I became a mum, I've never ever said that Father Christmas existed or the Tooth Fairy existed. I've always told my children the truth. And the funny thing is, they still believe what they want to believe. So like one of our children, like our eldest, has always just believed that Father Christmas wasn't real. And people say, oh, you're ruining the magic of Christmas and this, that and the other. And the strange thing is he has Christmas on his own terms. And so the magic is never ruined. It's ruined for you knowing that my child doesn't support it. And my other one, who knows that Father Christmas doesn't exist, still chooses to believe in him. And that's absolutely fine too. But it's really important for me to know that I haven't lied to them. Just because I was thinking, wow, how do I keep the trust in my children? When at some level they may well find out that everything they know from the world is a crock of doodah.
Did you tell them that as well?
It comes up in conversations. I mean, really what I do is I just question everything. So like when somebody says, oh, isn't it funny how I don't know how we all need vaccinations for things to keep us safe. I say, is it? That's what we've been said. I wonder if that's true. And so I'm questioning everything. And it's really hard for some adults to hear me do that with my children, because they may well not be doing it with their children. And no way is right or wrong. You raise your children in the way that feels right for you. At some level, I'm raising my children to live on shaky ground and be okay with that. So they may have a lot less stability than children who believe in a certain world. However, I think my children are not surprised when they hear about something not being quite as they thought. And they're like, oh, okay. Rather than being hurt or upset or worried or angry, they're just kind of curious about it, which works for me for now. And again, that may well change. So who knows? And we've got a thank you from Jen, and an affirmation that that gut feelings definitely have fed into that. Well, I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much for sharing that, Jen. And of course, Rick and I are here most weeks, week in, week out. I was looking in our back catalogue. We've got so many videos between us, haven't we? So many.
Indeed. Yeah.
Go on.
Just if I may, just coming back to raising children.
Go on. Because you've raised, can I say, you've raised 2 sets of children, haven't you? So presumably the way you've done that is different. Like my husband has had 3 families, and they're all kind of connected in different ways. But you can tell a sort of incarnation of family madness. Like you change, don't you?
Yes.
Go on. Sorry.
Yes. So I think what's sadly missing in our world at the moment is imagination. Imagination has been stifled by certain narratives and ways of we're educated to think, what to think rather than how to think. So we need to stimulate the right hemisphere of the brain, right, and have imagination. And that's where we can play with kids and tell them, and I usually preempt it. Well, look, this is the myth of this or that, or the mythology of this or that. So I'm not saying this is a hard and fact story, right? Because sooner or later you're going to prove me wrong. And then you might be asking, okay, Santa Claus doesn't exist. What else has he been lying about to me? Right? So, but at the same time, we want to stimulate their curiosity and stimulate their imagination. And we don't want to do anything to stop that. So if we can add that into the equation of parenting, then I think we'll have very well balanced kids that can find out for themselves. Right. I used to believe in it, but no, I realized it was just a myth, a story. But it sure was fun. Wrapping all those presents and sticking them under the Christmas tree and the lights and all of that.
We were mistaken. I like that.
Mistaken. Beautiful.
When you realise that like Father Christmas doesn't exist, and for those of you that didn't know that already, we're sorry we've blown the lid on that. But I still enjoy every single one of the parts of Christmas that we've always enjoyed.
Yes. Yeah. And critical thinking is important. We do need the left hemisphere for the intelligence of not the egoic mind, which is based on fear, but the intelligent mind, which can sort out the cognitive dissonance. It can sort out critical thinking. It can put logic into situations, analyze things. So, and it's linear, so there's structure to it, but not at the expense of the right hemisphere, which sees the bigger holistic picture. And that's where our creativity flows from. We, with the balance, our kids go to what is called neo-humanistic education, and it's a beautiful balance of left and right hemisphere learning. So this is the new paradigm of education, so that we don't stifle those beautiful creative ideas of writing and we kids see other dimensional activities, and yet they're accused of it's just your imagination, right? Can my friend sit at the dinner table? Yeah. What friend? It's just she's got such a furtive imagination. Really?
Yeah.
What she really wants to say was, Dad, get
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Thankfully, that hasn't happened to me. So
It's really funny. I was actually, before you came up with the suggestion of On Shaky Ground as a title for today, I was mulling over saying I would like something to do with raising children, like how to raise children in this world. And so it's really funny that that's come into the equation anyway. I love how that's happened.
yes, yes, yeah. And we can another stable thing is it sounds a bit contrary because the earth can shake and move and flood and be desertified, but nature is very resilient and renews and regenerates itself. So just by being in nature and absorbing nature and watching nature, that Mother Nature, Mother Earth can be an incredible stabilizing factor, right? And again, with the proviso that you're not in a massive earthquake zone.
Yeah,
But again, it's still nature.
it is.
It's still nature, isn't it? Still the earth going through her process. So finding things that are stable for you and being in there. And for me, being around nature is just such a stabilizing influence. So even if you're going to a park, which is certain degree manicured lawns, but there's a chair and a lake and some ducks, and you could take some bread or some seeds or whatever, and just immerse yourself in that, taking your taking your shoes and socks off on a summer day and walking through grass or on sand. All of those have a beautiful grounding effect and gets us out of our head, which can be in the future or in the past.
Absolutely. For many years, if somebody asked me if I was religious, I used to say I'm a pantheist. I've got a very sort of like pantheistic worldview. Now I might say I believe in Mother Nature or I believe in nature, which is essentially the same thing. But actually, one of my stable datums, and it's not necessarily a stable datum, but it always brings me back to stability somehow. How some people ask themselves, what would love do in this situation? Which I think is a fantastic question, and that always works. But I always also ask myself, what does nature say about this situation? And so wherever I go, I'm looking around at how how mammals do things, how plants grow, how they reproduce, the cycle of life. And I find a lot of my wisdom or a lot of my influences come from observing nature. So, for instance, like mammals do group together until the children are meant to clear off, and then often, in particular with cats, they let their kids know it's time for independence. But mammals tend to sleep together, and that's something I came across when I was in Bali, learning how families often sleep in one room together, or just everything. like oh yeah, my feelings about abundance, and like we live with this fake money system. We all believe in it because we've been told this is how it is, and that there is no reciprocity. The only reciprocity is kind of equaled out. I'll give you this if you give me that. It's like an exchange. But actually, and it's finite. We believe that money is a finite process, and also we believe that about the resources on our planet, that everything is going to run out at some point, and we cannot carry on the way we're doing. When I look at nature, I don't see that reflected back. What I see reflected back is there is abundance everywhere. I'm a keen gardener, or maybe not that active, but I used to really love annual plants, and every plant can produce enough seed to create millions of itself, almost, maybe within a few lifetimes. And so there's abundance. There's not a narrowing of things. Why would nature do that if there wasn't the actual opportunity for it to work? I love cultivating bacteria, so like kombucha and kefir and things like that. And if you keep the environment right, it will live forever. It really will live forever. If it's given the right environment, it will live forever. And the truth of nature is that with the right environment, abundance is complete. It's there forever.
Yes.
So I think
yes.
our mental environment here and our physical environment has been tampered with. We're believing in scarcity. When I look at nature, that's not what I see. The only scarcity I see in nature is what has been created by man, and the belief that there's scarcity.
Yes. And a limiting belief.
Yeah.
And then we're focusing on what we don't have instead of what we want to have in our life.
Yeah.
And the earth does, it renews and regenerates. If we took every man, woman and child off this planet right now, within a very short span of time, the waters would be cleaned, the air would be breathable everywhere, and the soil would be arable, and she would renew and regenerate herself. Proof of that is that look what in the past the Amazon jungle and here in Bali was just filled with jungle and trees and tropical flowers and bamboos thriving, and we cut it down as a resource, but we have bamboo here right outside my office, and if I have to, I can cut some off. It's sustainable. Very soon afterwards, growing at about half a yard a day. I've got another pole there, so it's very fast. Given as you say, given the right environment, right? And we are guardians of the earth. We should be looking out, stewarding. Each one of us should be stewarding the earth and looking after it. And because what is the one thing that gives us everything we need? Everything.
Yes.
Right? The only thing that has not come from the earth could be a meteorite or something that has come from out of space. But everything else that we use, from pens, plastic, metal, food, rubber, it's all come from the earth, either from oils or timber or paper, all of that. And yet, part of our mindset is we are the dominant species and we can just take what we want. Until the last drop of blood or oil is siphoned from Mother Earth's veins, and the last tree is cut down. So this is all it's a mindset of greed, but behind that greed is fear that there won't be enough for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not about us and we, it's more about I, me, mine, whether you're at the top of a corporation or a government or whatever. So what's required now, the one thing that we can be stable upon is our consciousness.
Yes.
Right? This is the driver. This is what animates these bodies. This is that drives the lungs to keep breathing in and out and the heart to keep beating. We know this because when the soul or spirit or life force leaves the body, those things stop.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could put our attention on who we really are at the core, and that is an infinite being having a human experience.
Yeah.
And the human experience is finite, and that which animates it, this consciousness, this one stable that is in every one of us, right, without fail, and is not separate from anything, from the trees, the rocks, you and I. That's the one stable datum that never goes away. And if we put our attention on growing that more, then we'll be of value to ourselves and live a very richly rewarding life.
Yes.
I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
You don't need to. I was just thinking, wow, this is like the conversation that keeps on giving. And I was just thinking, I'd love to keep talking about it. And then I looked at the clock and realized my husband needs to be on in half an hour.
Right.
Move. But yeah, I absolutely. When you said we have consciousness, sort of enlivening our bodies, it's infusing with our bodies. Using my sort of like philosophy of what's in nature and is in us and vice versa. At some level, then Mother Nature has, is an animated, like the earth is the body, and it is animated by the great soul of Mother Nature, or
Yes.
some people like say the sky is the father and the earth is the mother. Who knows? I really don't know, but I know that we're all connected to it, and I think that's a great way to start. In fact,
Yes.
Jen White has just come back and just said thank you. Thanks, guys. Lovely way to start the day.
Thank you, Jen. And just let us know where you're from.
Yeah, I think Jen White's from the UK, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But let's find out. That would be great, to be really, really sure. But please do join us again. And if there's anything either of us can do, Rick, what's the best way for Jen to contact you if she wanted to reach out to you, or anyone?
You on your ticker at the bottom has got Rick Pursell. If you take away the www and put info@rickpursell.com, you can get in touch with me there.
Yeah, perfect. And of course, Jen is from Devon, which is where I know from. It's just I've got a couple of friends called Jennifer White, so I just wanted to check which one I was chatting with.
One of my favorite places on the planet, Jen. I'm green with envy.
In fact, it's really funny because after Bali, I moved to Devon. And one of the things I loved about Devon was it reminded me so much of your beautiful Bali, with its hills and its beautiful greens, and also the rain, which makes it so green. And then we found it here again in central Portugal. It's hills, it's green. So I feel very at home in all three places.
Yes.
Anyway,
indeed.
we must draw this to a close.
Okay. Reluctantly, we shall. But we'll be here. All being well, we'll be here next week.
Absolutely. So much love.
Have a wonderful week ahead there, Louisa, and our viewers and listeners, and stay in that consciousness that you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right back to you, Rick, and to your wonderful, beautiful family, that lovely country you're in, those lovely cicadas that have joined us today. Love to you.
Love it.
Catch up with you.
Big love to you.
Bye for now.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.